Here we are, tasting wine with Pete and Dave. Yeah, unfortunately this week, sad to say, Pete's not with us. His mother passed away and he's doing the family thing, so we'll have to wait for another week till Pete gets back, but I've got an incredible lineup here. I've got 14 wines to taste today, and most of them Pinot Noirs. I've got Pinot Noirs from Tasmania, Pinot Noirs from Adelaide Hills, Pinot Noirs from the Yarra Valley, and Pinot Noirs from New Zealand, from Marlborough and from Central Otago. So let's get started. The first wine I've got here is a champagne from France, and this is a Paul Geisner champagne from France. Some nice fruit there on the nose. Very fruity on the palate as well. And of course, for a French champagne, you get that sort of bready characteristic, some yeast in there. So that's a very lovely bottle of bubbles, and I think that's more on the budget end as well, around about that $30 mark. So very good example. Now the next wine I've got here is Chardonnay. Now this Chardonnay is from Franklin Tate Estates. That's Margaret River. This is a 2013 Chardonnay. Wow, a lot of citrus on that. I gotta say, I've never had a Chardonnay quite like that before. Get very little oak, so that hasn't had much time in oak at all. But wow, the citrus fruit on that, if I was tasting that in a blind tasting, I would have guessed that's a Sauvignon Blanc. So that's kind of crazy, 2013 Chardonnay. Franklin Tate Estates. Okay, next wine we've got here is Gießen. Now this is a Marlborough Pinot Noir called The Brothers. I love Pinot Noirs. Very, very light style of wine. Now Pinot Noir that it isn't exposed to the skins for all that long. That's why that wine is such a light style. And you always get these very light berry characteristics out of a Pinot Noir. Oh, and I get a little bit of that sort of earthy forest floor. If you've ever walked through maybe a wooded area and sort of kicked up the leaves, you get that little bit of a damp, musty kind of a smell. And I get that on the nose with the Pinot Noir. Beautiful. That's a Marlborough Pinot Noir. And there's some very, very lovely light berry flavors. Now, something I get out of quite a lot of Pinot Noirs, I get these raspberry flavors, and that goes back to my childhood when we used to have raspberry bushes in our backyard, and we used to go out and pick the raspberries, and I love the smell on my fingers after you pick the raspberries. That's such a lovely natural smell before any sugar adulterates those raspberries, and that's what I get out of a Pinot Noir. The next Pinot Noir we've got here is a Pinot Noir called the Anthem Discover. Now this is a Central Otago Pinot Noir, 2012. And for anybody who is a little bit unfamiliar with Central Otago, that's down the bottom there, very, very close to Queenstown, in the bottom of the South Island. Now there's a range of mountains on the west side of the Central Otago, and Central Otago is a very rocky, very riverstone sort of a soil. So it's the riverstones that have an effect with the sunlight and the sun blazing down on those riverstones all day. It creates heat in the stones and heat in the earth, which maintains a temperature around those vines into the cool of the evening. Wow. the berry flavors in that are so powerful. I get these big red cherry flavors in there as well. Now, the next wine we've got here is Adelaide Hills Pinot Noir, Nepenthe. Now, Adelaide Hills is also a very cool climate, and the Pinot Noir does very well in a cool climate. Oh, and I get this a little bit more of the earthiness in this Pinot Noir. Seems to be a little bit more acid on the palate there, but very much riper berries. They seem to be a little bit darker in that Pinot Noir as well. That's what I imagine anyway as I taste that. Next one we've got is a Tasmanian Pinot Noir. Now this is a Devil's Corner, 2012. Now this is where Pete's knowledge would come into play here. I'm not too up on my Tasmanian Pinot Noirs. I know it's a cool climate area, very much like New Zealand is. Still a little bit further north than that central Otago area. In fact, a little bit further north still than the Marlborough region in New Zealand. But they make some very, very nice Pinot Noirs. Now, this one on the nose seems to be a little bit closed. I don't get quite so much on the nose this one. There's just very subtle fruit character. Oh, but I get it on the palate. There's some very, very ripe berry flavors here. And again, that earthiness that that I find in most Pinot Noirs, as I said. The next one is the 12 Degrees. Now, this is another Central Otago Pinot Noir, 2012. Now, this is sort of on the budget end as far as the price range is concerned as well, 12 Degrees. Now, again, Central Otago started planting wines that had French influence, and they started planting their Pinot Noir in the 1860s during the gold rush time. So they've had a lot of practice down there with their Pinot Noir. I can feel the acid on the palate with that one, but again, there is those musty, earthy sort of forest floor characteristics with the nice, big, red, ripe cherry flavors coming through. Most of these Pinot Noirs, as Pete alluded to last week, would go excellent with duck. But I think that they would also go very, very well with lovely chicken with a white or light sauce. I think pork meal or even a lamb meal with some mint sauce. There's enough character in these Pinot Noirs and enough fruitiness in these Pinot Noirs to carry them through even something like lamb. The next one we've got here is St. Herbert the Stag. Now this is from Yarra Valley, and this is a 2012 vintage. Now, Yarra Valley, only about 45 kilometers out from Melbourne, so it's a great place to go visit if you get a chance when you're visiting Melbourne. A little bit more tannin on that one. Tannin, that part that makes your mouth pucker a little bit, sometimes makes you feel like you got to peel your lips off your teeth. But there's quite a lot of tannin there, which will mean that Pinot Noir will age for a little while. They'll develop some of those characters will integrate, and that could develop some very interesting. That could develop into a very interesting Pinot Noir. Next Pinot Noir we have here is from Yarra Valley as well. It's Cold Streams. Now this is 2012. Oh, I get that earthiness on the nose here as well. Oh, that's a lovely, lovely characteristic. Bit of tannin in that one as well. In fact, just a little bit more tannin, I think, in that Coldstream Hills, but then I get the berry fruit characteristics coming through a little bit stronger in the middle palate. Lovely, lovely Pinot Noir. Next one we've got here, now this one's got a little bit of age. This is the Yearling Station 2010, again from Yarra Valley. Now, with a little bit of age on this, I would expect we've got a little bit more integration of the oak and the tannin and the fruit. I sense that on the nose already. The fruitiness is died down just a little bit, but there's a lovely integration of the oak into that. Lovely color too. Now this is just showing up a little bit darker in color, not quite as vibrant and red as some of these other Pinot Noirs that are pretty young. But I'll tell you what, the fruitiness in this is still there very, very powerfully. So this one has got a long way to go. That's some big fruit flavors in that. And that's what I love in a Pinot Noir. Those Pinot Noirs with that lovely big fruit flavor. I think we do them better here in this part of the world than they do in France. But then again, I suppose Frenchmen might want to dispute that. All right, the next one we've got is Mudhouse. Mudhouse Pinot Noir, Central Otago, 2012. Now, this has got to be one of my favorites all times. And probably a little bit to do with my experience in tasting Mudhouse wines over the years. They do an outstanding range of wines. Wow, the berry on the nose. That is incredible. This has got to be the biggest wine so far of the day, with the berry coming through on the nose. Oh, wow. On the palate as well. Big, big berry flavors. And that one seems to linger a while. So there's a really, really rich, thick middle palate with this wine as well. Again, I love this wine. I think this one you'd be able to put down in your cellar for another 5 to 6 years and would develop some very interesting characters. Big, big Pinot. So, wow, what an incredible range of Pinot Noirs. Now, we've got 3 more here. The next one we've got is Fox Creek McLaren Vale Duet. Now, this is a Duet Cabernet Merlot, 2011. McLaren Vale 2011. Didn't do too badly. A lot of Australia struggled because of the wet at the end of 2011. But this has got some big, big fruit. Ah, there's some beautiful oak in that as well. Some nice tannin. And then I get the plumminess of the Merlot coming through in the middle palate as well. It's a lovely wine. It's very, very soft and full of rich flavors. This is a very, very well structured wine. Absolutely lovely. Elegant balance and style. Now, the next wine we've got here is a Tatachilla Reserve. This is a 2012 McLaren Vale Shiraz. Now, I've never ever been disappointed with a Tatachilla since I've been tasting wines. Now, this is very, very deep, deep purple colors. Absolutely lovely. 2012, fairly young. Wow. I get some of that black pepper and blackberry characteristics. Oh, I do love a Shiraz. There's a bit of chocolate on the palate. some black pepper, bit of coffee. That's very interesting. I think this one, for 2012, this one sit down in the cellar for 10 years without a problem. Okay, the next one we've got here, and the last wine on the list, is Killicanoon. Cavel's Flock Shiraz. Now this is 2012, and this is Barossa Valley. Big Barossa Valley fruit. Now, my understanding, and it's a bit of a limited understanding, but I believe the Killicanoon has a little bit of German influence. That's our German influence in the Barossa Valley. And this has been aged in some French oak. Not as big as some of that American oak, but lovely. Adds a lovely subtle characteristics to the nose of this wine. Lovely Shiraz. A lot of tannin in this wine. I get that French oak characteristic in this wine. Plus all those big dark berry flavors and chocolate that you find in a good Shiraz. Well, that's the end of the tasting for the day. Next week, Pete will be back. So we'll see you then.